The cafe buzzed with the usual morning crowd. Business professionals in neatly pressed suits, travelers with rolling luggage, and locals enjoying their daily routine. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as waiters weaved between tables, carrying trays loaded with steaming cups and delicate pastries. Among them was Maya, a young waitress who had been working here for over a year. She had a warm smile, a quick step, and a kindness that made customers feel welcome. Despite the long hours and the occasional rude guest, she loved her job. It wasn't just about serving coffee. It was about the people, the little interactions that brightened someone's day. That morning, Maya had no idea that her life was about to change. The moment the man walked in, the atmosphere in the cafe shifted. He wasn't flashy or demanding, but there was something about him that caught people's attention. Tall, with a neatly trimmed beard, and dressed in an elegant white jacket, he carried himself with quiet confidence. He slid into a table near the window, removed his sunglasses, and glanced at the menu. Maya, as always, was attentive. She approached with a friendly smile. "Good morning. Can I get you something to drink?" she asked, pen poised over her notepad. The man looked up, his blue eyes warm. "Just a black coffee for now." "Thank you." Maya nodded and hurried off to prepare his order. She didn't think much of it, just another customer, another order. But the moment she turned away, she noticed something strange. A few tables away, a manager, Mr. Larson, was watching her. His expression was unreadable, but there was a sharpness in his gaze that made her uneasy. As Maya returned with the coffee, the man smiled in appreciation. "You've got a great place here, really cozy." She beamed. "It's one of my favorite spots. I hope you enjoy your coffee." Before she could walk away, a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. The cafe door swung open, and a group of customers entered, their excitement barely contained. They whispered among themselves, their eyes scanning the room, until one of them pointed discreetly toward the man Maya had just served. "That's him," one of them murmured. Maya frowned slightly. Who was this man? Why were people suddenly so interested in him? A couple of guests pulled out their phones, sneaking pictures from their tables. Then it clicked. Chris Evans. The realization hit her like a wave. She had just served coffee to one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and she hadn't even recognized him. It wasn't often that celebrities strolled into their little cafe, and judging by his relaxed demeanor, he clearly hadn't expected to be noticed so quickly. Maya kept her cool, acting as if nothing had changed. She returned to work, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Mr. Larson was still watching. In fact, he was heading straight toward her. "Step aside," he said, his tone clipped. Confused, Maya obeyed as he approached Chris's table. The manager's smile was forced, his voice overly polite. "Mr. Evans, welcome. I apologize for any disturbance. Would you prefer a private space?" Chris looked up, clearly surprised. "Oh, I'm fine here, thanks." Larson's smile wavered slightly. "Are you sure? We want to ensure you have the best experience." Chris nodded. "I appreciate it, but I really just wanted some coffee and a quiet morning." The manager hesitated, but eventually backed off, though not before shooting Maya a disapproving look. She had no idea what she had done wrong, but something about the way he reacted made her nervous. As the morning rush continued, Maya went about her work, trying to push aside her unease. She had served a celebrity, so what? She had treated him like any other guest, which she thought was the right thing to do. But Larson's behavior suggested otherwise. Minutes later, as Maya was refilling a customer's water glass, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see one of her coworkers, her expression a mix of concern and sympathy. "The manager wants to see you," she whispered. Maya's stomach dropped. She quickly wiped her hands on her apron and made her way to the back, where Larson was waiting. His arms were crossed, his face unreadable. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Maya frowned. "I was just serving a customer." "You were serving Chris Evans," he said, emphasizing the name. "And you drew attention to him." She blinked in confusion. "I didn't even realize who he was until people started noticing him. I treated him like anyone else." Larson exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "That's exactly the problem. You should have alerted me the moment you recognized him. We have protocols for handling VIP guests. You made a mistake, and now we have people taking photos, crowding the cafe. This is bad for business." Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just did my job." The manager's eyes hardened. "Well, maybe this isn't the job for you anymore." Her breath caught in her throat. "Are you firing me?" Larson didn't answer right away, but the silence was enough. Maya felt the weight of the moment settle on her chest. She had worked here for over a year, always showing up on time, always giving her best. And now, because she had served someone a cup of coffee without treating them like royalty, she was about to lose everything. Chris Evans had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. But Maya was about to find out that sometimes the simplest act of kindness could have unexpected consequences. Maya stood frozen for a moment, trying to process what was happening. She had never been in trouble at work before, never even received a warning. And now, out of nowhere, she was being blamed for something that didn't even seem like a mistake. The cafe had been running smoothly before Chris Evans walked in, and even after customers started recognizing him, there hadn't been any real chaos. People were excited, sure, but they weren't causing a scene. Yet here she was, standing in the back room, facing the possibility of losing her job over something that wasn't even her fault. "I don't understand," she said, her voice steady but confused. "I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I treated him like any other guest, like we always do." Mr. Larson sighed, rubbing his temple like this conversation was exhausting him. "You don't get it, Maya. When someone like Chris Evans walks in, we handle things differently. We give them extra attention, make sure they get special treatment. You should have directed him to a private area where he wouldn't attract attention. Instead, you just let him sit there like he was some regular guy." Maya couldn't help but let out a small, incredulous laugh. But he wanted to be treated like a regular guy. That's why he came here, isn't it? Larson's eyes narrowed. It doesn't matter what he wanted. What matters is what's good for this cafe. Now, thanks to your little slip-up, customers were taking pictures, posting on social media, and we weren't prepared for that kind of attention. That's bad for business. Maya felt a deep frustration rising in her chest. She had always taken pride in her work, making sure every guest felt welcome. But now she was being told that wasn't enough, that she should have prioritized a celebrity's comfort over simply doing her job. It didn't sit right with her. "So what does this mean?" she asked cautiously. "Am I fired?" Larson let the silence stretch for a few seconds before finally answering. "I'm still deciding. Go home for the day. I'll let you know." That was almost worse than being fired on the spot. The uncertainty, the waiting, the feeling that everything she had worked for could disappear overnight. It was unbearable. Maya took off her apron and walked out of the cafe, her heart pounding. The fresh air outside should have calmed her, but it didn't. Her mind kept replaying the conversation over and over, trying to make sense of it. She had been a good employee. She had done everything right. But somehow, none of that seemed to matter. She was so lost in thought that she barely noticed someone calling her name. Maya? She turned, startled, and saw Chris Evans standing a few feet away. He had put his sunglasses back on, but even with them, his expression was easy to read, concerned, curious. "Oh," she said, caught off guard. "Hi. Ida, saw you leaving. You looked upset," he said. "Everything okay?" Maya hesitated. She didn't know if she should tell him. It wasn't his fault, and she didn't want to seem like she was blaming him for what had happened. But at the same time, she wasn't in the mood to pretend everything was fine. "I think I just got fired," she admitted, trying to keep her voice light, even though she felt anything but. Chris frowned. "What? Why?" She shrugged, feeling suddenly embarrassed. "Apparently, I wasn't supposed to treat you like a normal customer. I should have, I don't know, whispered to my manager the second I recognized you. Given you a VIP section, something like that." Chris shook his head, looking genuinely annoyed. "That's ridiculous. You were great. I asterisk-liked asterisk that you treated me like a regular person." Maya let out a small laugh. "Well, my boss didn't." Chris hesitated, as if debating something in his head. Then he said, "Come on, let's sit for a second." Maya hesitated, but then nodded. They found a small bench near the cafe, where the sound of the city filled the silence between them. Maya wasn't sure why he was still talking to her. Maybe he just felt bad, but she appreciated it nonetheless. "This isn't fair," Chris said after a moment. "You were just doing your job, and from what I saw, you were doing it well." "Thanks," Maya said softly. There was another pause, then Chris looked at her seriously. "Do you want me to talk to your manager? Maybe if I explain that you did everything right, he'll listen." Maya thought about it, but then shook her head. "I don't think it would make a difference. Larson isn't the kind of guy who likes being told he's wrong." Chris nodded like he understood, but something in his expression told Maya he wasn't letting this go. She didn't know what that meant, but she had a feeling that this conversation wasn't the end of it. For now, though, all she could do was wait and see. Maya sat on the bench, staring down at her hands as Chris remained silent beside her. The weight of the situation was sinking in, but there was also something surreal about it. Here she was, sharing a quiet conversation with one of the biggest stars in the world, yet it wasn't about a movie or an autograph. It was about asterisk her asterisk job, asterisk her asterisk life. It felt strange, almost unreal. Chris let out a breath, shaking his head. "This isn't sitting right with me." Maya glanced at him. "I appreciate that, but it's not like I can do much about it." Chris leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Maybe you can't, but I can." Maya straightened. "Chris, you don't have to get involved." "I asterisk want asterisk to," he interrupted, turning to face her. "I don't like seeing good people get treated unfairly. You didn't do anything wrong, and if your boss can't see that, then maybe someone needs to remind him." Maya bit her lip. She wasn't used to people standing up for her, at least not like this. She had always been the type to handle things on her own, to push through no matter how hard it got. But this was different. Before she could respond, a familiar voice called her name. She turned to see Carla, another waitress from the cafe, hurrying toward her with wide eyes. "Maya, I've been looking for you everywhere," Carla said, slightly out of breath. "Did you hear what's happening?" Maya frowned. "No, what's going on?" Carla hesitated, glancing at Chris before lowering her voice. "People are talking. Customers started posting online about what happened, about how you got sent home just for serving him. And now it's spreading." Maya's stomach twisted. Spreading how? Carla pulled out her phone and scrolled quickly before showing her the screen. Maya's heart skipped as she saw multiple posts, tweets, Facebook updates, even a couple of short videos. Some people were angry, calling the cafe out for discrimination. Others were just confused, wondering why an employee was being punished for doing her job. Chris took the phone from Carla's hands, his brows furrowed as he scrolled. Wow, this is really picking up. Maya shook her head, overwhelmed. I didn't expect this. Carla sighed. Neither did I. But it gets worse. Larson is freaking out. He's trying to do damage control, but people aren't buying it. A couple of influencers are already calling for a boycott. Maya's chest tightened. She had worked there for so long, and now, in just a few hours, everything had spiraled into something much bigger than she could have imagined. She had only wanted to do her job, not become the center of some viral controversy. Chris turned to her, his expression serious. This might be an opportunity. Maya blinked. An opportunity? He nodded. People are listening. They're paying attention. Maybe this isn't just about you losing your job. Maybe it's about something bigger. About the way people in the service industry are treated. About how unfair policies like this can affect good workers. Maya hesitated. She had never thought of herself as someone who would be at the center of any kind of movement. She was just a waitress, trying to make ends meet. But now it felt like something beyond her control was unfolding. Carla touched her arm gently. The question is, what do you want to do? Maya swallowed. That was the real question, wasn't it? Did she want to fight this, speak out, or did she just want to walk away and find another job, pretend like this never happened? She wasn't sure. But one thing was clear. This wasn't over yet. Maya could feel her heart pounding as she scrolled through the endless comments flooding social media. The situation was snowballing, gaining traction at a speed she never expected. Strangers were defending her, customers were vowing never to return to the cafe, and news outlets were beginning to pick up the story. She had gone from being an invisible worker behind the counter to the face of an unexpected controversy. Chris sat beside her, watching closely. This is getting big, he murmured. People are rallying behind you. Maya let out a shaky breath. I never wanted any of this. Carla, still standing nearby, gave her a reassuring look. I know that maybe this isn't just about what you wanted. Maybe this is happening for a reason. Maya wasn't sure what to believe. The cafe had been her job for years. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Now it felt like she was being forced into a spotlight she never asked for. But deep down, a small voice whispered that maybe Carla was right. Maybe this wasn't just about her. Then her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk asterisk, we need to talk. Come to the cafe. Now, Larson asterisk asterisk. Her breath caught in her throat. Her boss. He never reached out like this. She looked up at Chris and Carla, feeling a wave of uncertainty. What is it? Chris asked. She hesitated before handing him the phone. He read the message, his jaw tightening. Sounds like he's panicking. Carla folded her arms. Of course he is. He's realizing that firing you wasn't just unfair. It was a mistake. Maya wasn't sure what to do. Did she really want to walk back into that cafe after everything? But another part of her, the part that was tired of being walked over, knew she couldn't just ignore this. Chris stood. If you go, I'm going with you. Maya's eyes widened. You don't have to. I want to, he interrupted, a firm look in his eyes. This involves me too. Carla gave her a nod. Go, and don't let him make you feel small. Maya took a deep breath. This wasn't just about getting her job back anymore. This was about standing up for herself, for every worker who had ever been pushed aside for simply doing the right thing. As she and Chris made their way to the cafe, the city around them felt different. It was as if the weight of what was happening had changed everything, even the air. When they reached the entrance, Maya's stomach twisted. The place was quieter than usual, but she could see Larson through the glass, pacing inside. Chris pushed open the door, stepping in beside her. The moment Larson saw them, he froze, his expression unreadable. But there was something different in his eyes. For the first time, Maya thought she saw something close to fear. The battle wasn't over yet, but it was just about to begin. Maya stepped into the cafe, her pulse quickening as the door swung shut behind her. The familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air, but the atmosphere felt different, tense, uncertain. Larson stood by the counter, his expression carefully controlled, though his eyes flickered with something she couldn't quite read. Chris remained close, his presence solid and reassuring. "I see you got my message," Larson said, his voice tight. Maya nodded, folding her arms. "Yeah, what do you want?" Larson exhaled, rubbing his temples. "Look, this has gotten out of hand. The media is all over it. People are calling, leaving bad reviews. We're losing business." Maya tilted her head, waiting. He wasn't apologizing. He was just worried about his bottom line. "I need you to make a statement," he continued. "Tell people this was a misunderstanding. Say you overreacted." Maya's stomach twisted. "You want me to lie?" "Come on, Maya," Larson said, his tone shifting to something almost pleading. "I'll even reinstate you. No more trouble, no more drama. You get your job back, and this all goes away." Chris let out a sharp laugh. "So now you want her back?" "After humiliating her and throwing her out." Larson's jaw tightened. "I made a mistake, all right, but I'm trying to fix it." Maya's hands curled into fists at her sides. He wasn't fixing anything. He was just trying to protect himself. Before she could respond, the cafe door swung open again. A woman in a crisp navy blue blazer stepped inside, her sharp gaze scanning the room. She walked with purpose, her heels clicking against the floor. Larson stiffened the moment he saw her. "Larson," she said coolly, "we need to talk." Maya frowned, glancing at Chris. "Who was this?" Larson's face paled. "Ms. Whitmore, I wasn't expecting you." Ms. Whitmore. The name sent a murmur through the cafe. Maya had heard of her before. She was a regional manager, one of the higher-ups. If she was here, it meant this situation had escalated far beyond a few bad reviews. "I wasn't expecting to be here either," Whitmore said. "But after reviewing the footage and the reports, corporate has some concerns." Larson's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "I can explain." She held up a hand, silencing him. Then she turned to Maya. "Miss Brooks, I'd like to hear from you directly. Can we sit?" Maya hesitated, glancing at Chris. He gave her a small nod. Taking a deep breath, she followed Whitmore to a table. The cafe was eerily quiet as they sat across from each other. Larson lingered nearby, clearly uncomfortable, but too afraid to leave. "Tell me what happened," Whitmore said. Maya recounted everything, the way she had simply helped a customer, how Larson had immediately jumped to conclusions, how she was fired on the spot. She kept her voice steady, though the anger and hurt still simmered beneath the surface. Chris added his own account, describing how he had been treated and how the situation had unfolded afterward. Whitmore listened carefully, her expression unreadable. When Maya finished, she leaned back slightly, exhaling through her nose. "This is bad," she said finally. Larson shifted uneasily. "I already told her I'd reinstate her," he said quickly. "We can fix this." "You don't get to make that decision anymore. Whitmore cut in, her tone sharp. Corporate is stepping in. A stunned silence fell over the room. Larson's face drained of color. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Whitmore stood, smoothing down her blazer. "You'll be hearing from HR shortly. As of now, you're suspended pending further investigation." Maya's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. Larson looked like he had been punched in the gut. "This isn't just about you," Whitmore continued. "We've been receiving complaints about workplace discrimination here for months. Your actions gave us the final proof we needed." Maya felt a surge of emotions: shock, vindication, relief. But something told her this wasn't over yet. Larson opened his mouth, but no words came out. His hands clenched at his sides, his entire body rigid. He looked at Maya, and for the first time, there was no arrogance, no authority, just fear. Whitmore turned back to Maya. "We'll be in touch soon. In the meantime, I suggest you prepare for a lot more attention. This isn't just a small-town scandal anymore." Maya's breath caught. The reality of the situation was setting in. This had gone beyond a single unfair firing. This was exposing something much bigger. As Whitmore walked out, the cafe remained deathly silent. Larson stood frozen in place. Chris placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "You okay?" he asked softly. Maya exhaled. "I don't know, but I think this is just the beginning." Maya sat in her small apartment, staring at her phone as messages and notifications flooded in. Her story had gone viral, and people from all over were reaching out, some offering support, others sharing their own experiences of workplace discrimination. She had never imagined that one moment of kindness toward a customer would turn into something this big. Chris had been right. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about everyone who had ever been mistreated, overlooked, or silenced. And now the world was watching. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, Chris stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. He gave her a small smile as he stepped inside. "You doing okay?" he asked, setting the cups on the counter. Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "I don't know. Everything is happening so fast." Chris leaned against the counter. "You're handling it better than most people would." She shook her head. "I didn't ask for any of this." "No," Chris agreed. "But maybe that's why you're the right person to stand up." Before she could respond, her phone rang. She hesitated when she saw the number. It was an unknown caller. With everything going on, she had been getting calls from reporters, companies, even lawyers. But something told her to pick up. "Hello," she said cautiously. "Ms. Brooks." A calm, professional voice responded. "This is Laura Whitmore from corporate." Maya straightened. "Yes, I remember." "I wanted to update you on our internal investigation," Whitmore continued. "After reviewing multiple complaints and speaking with employees, we have officially terminated Larson from his position." Maya's breath caught. It was happening. Whitmore wasn't done. "We've also decided to issue a formal apology to you, and we'd like to offer you a position as assistant manager at another location." Maya blinked. Assistant manager. "We believe you have the leadership and integrity we need," Whitmore said. "We'd like to make things right." Maya's mind raced. She had spent years working hard, following the rules, and being overlooked. Now she was being given an opportunity she never expected. "I appreciate the offer," Maya said slowly, "but I need time to think about it." "Of course," Whitmore replied. "Take your time. And for what it's worth, I hope you'll consider it. People like you are exactly what we need to change things for the better." After she hung up, she looked at Chris, who had been listening quietly. They fired Larson, she said, still processing everything. And they want me to take a management job. Chris smiled. That's incredible. Maya hesitated. But what if it's just for show? What if nothing really changes? Chris tilted his head. Then maybe you're the one who makes sure it does. She thought about that. About the people who had sent her messages, about the employees at the cafe who had stayed silent because they were afraid. Maybe this wasn't just about her getting justice. Maybe this was about something bigger. But before she could say anything, there was another knock at the door. Frowning, she opened it and froze. Larson stood there. He looked different, disheveled, exhausted. His usual smug expression was gone, replaced with something that almost looked like regret. "Maya," he said, his voice hoarse. "Can I talk to you?" Chris stepped closer, his body tense, but Maya held up a hand. She studied Larson carefully. "Why are you here?" she asked. Larson sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I lost everything. My job, my reputation. Everyone's turning their back on me." Maya crossed her arms. "That's what happens when you treat people the way you did." "I know," Larson admitted. "And maybe I deserve it. But I need you to understand. I wasn't always like this." Maya frowned, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. "I worked my way up from nothing," Larson continued. "I had to fight for every promotion, prove myself over and over. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing people. I just saw problems." He exhaled shakily. "But now I know I was wrong. I should have treated you with respect, and I should have never fired you." Maya didn't know what to say. A part of her wanted to believe him, but another part wondered if he was just trying to save face. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Larson said quickly. "I just wanted you to hear it from me. I messed up, and I'm paying for it." Maya studied him for a long moment. Then finally, she nodded. "I appreciate you saying that." Larson looked surprised. "You do?" She sighed. "Look, I don't know if you've really changed, but I do know what it's like to feel like no one sees you." She met his eyes. "Maybe this is your chance to be better." Larson swallowed hard, then nodded. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Chris let out a low whistle. Didn't see that coming. Maya shook her head. "Me neither." As she closed the door, she realized something. She had been so focused on what had been done to her that she hadn't thought about what came next. Maybe taking the job wasn't about proving something to corporate. Maybe it was about proving something to herself. She turned to Chris, determination settling in her chest. "I think I know what I'm going to do." Chris grinned. "Yeah." Maya nodded. It's time to make a real change. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind. Maya took her time thinking over the offer from corporate, weighing the risks and possibilities. She had spent so many years working under people who never really saw her, never valued her. Now she had a chance to be the one making decisions, setting the tone, and ensuring no one else went through what she had. It wasn't an easy decision, but deep down, she knew what she had to do. When she called Laura Whitmore back, her voice was steady. "I'll take the position, but on one condition. I want to be involved in training and policy changes. If I'm going to step into leadership, I want to make sure real change happens." There was a brief silence before Whitmore responded. "That's exactly why we want you, Maya. Welcome aboard." The moment she hung up, a strange mix of emotions rushed through her. Relief, nervousness, excitement. She had spent so long fighting just to be heard, and now people were listening. Chris was the first person she told. He grinned when she shared the news, raising his coffee cup in a toast. "I knew you'd do it. They're lucky to have you." Maya chuckled. We'll see about that. Her first day as assistant manager felt surreal. Walking into the new cafe, she caught glimpses of the staff watching her curiously, whispering amongst themselves. She knew she had a lot to prove, not just to them, but to herself. She spent the first few weeks observing, getting to know the employees, learning their struggles. Some of them had been treated unfairly, just as she had. Others were hesitant to trust her, unsure if she was just another corporate figure who would say the right things but never follow through. Maya made it a point to listen. She implemented small changes first, adjusting scheduling policies to be more fair, ensuring employees had proper breaks. Then she pushed for bigger shifts, like training programs focused on diversity and inclusion. It wasn't always easy. Some higher-ups resisted, worried about costs or breaking from tradition. But Maya refused to back down. She had seen firsthand what happened when people in power turned a blind eye, and she wasn't about to let that continue. One afternoon, as she was reviewing schedules, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "I see you're settling in." She turned and found Larson standing near the counter. He looked different, not just in appearance, but in the way he carried himself. Maya arched a brow. "Didn't expect to see you here." He gave a small, sheepish smile. "I actually applied for a job." Her eyes widened slightly. "Here." He nodded. "After everything that happened, I had a lot of time to think. I realized I had been the kind of manager I never wanted to be. I know I can't erase the past, but I want to do better." Maya studied him for a moment. The old Larson would have never admitted he was wrong, let alone tried to fix it. She wasn't sure if he had completely changed, but she believed in giving people chances. After all, someone had given her one. "I don't make hiring decisions alone," she said finally. "But if you're serious about learning and being better, I won't stand in your way." He nodded, looking grateful. "That's all I can ask for." As Larson left, Maya exhaled slowly. Life had a strange way of bringing things full circle. Over the next few months, Maya saw the impact of her work. Employees felt heard. Customers noticed the change in atmosphere. Other managers even reached out, wanting to adopt some of her policies in their own locations. One evening, as she closed up for the night, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Chris. "Asterisk, asterisk, proud of you. Let's celebrate soon, asterisk, asterisk." She smiled, typing back a quick reply. As she locked the doors and stepped outside, she took a deep breath, letting the cool night air fill her lungs. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just surviving, she was making a difference. And this was only the beginning.